Test. Hi, Holly.
Morning.
I need to find to turn on my camera. Everybody's still outside for the prayer, but we'll be started momentarily.
Okay.
Here we go. Hello.
Wherever you want. Probably the closer the better. Anywhere here, babe. Right, second row. Yep. Can you hear me? Did I do something wrong?
No. We're going to Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Zoom on that.
We're doing food sovereignty first.
Yes.
And then whenever you're ready,
I can show you that one. That one. That one. He honey wash day. Good morning, everybody. You know, I guess what I want to talk about a little bit here before we get started with our food sovereignty is, first of all, I really feel honored to have all of you here. What we're doing is so important, not only to our individual reservations, but to the states that we live in and to all of Indian country. So, you know, I'm really honored that you all took the time to be a part of this. You know, there's a couple things that I see that happened today and yesterday. We had the Coalition of Large Tribes and Intertribal Council come together on issues that affect all of us. And then, as I said, we have the first time in history where we have a black woman that is running for U.S. president. But what I thought was really amazing today, starting this off, was the fact that we not only had tribes and tribal leaders come together and tribal members, but this morning we had ancestors from different cultures come together to do a blessing. It was very powerful. So we're accomplishing a lot. And as you saw yesterday, we're really looking at issues that are happening in Nevada. And we want to be able to do anything that we can to help you, not only in getting out the native vote, which is very, very important, but any other issues you have. If there's an issue where you think that the Coalition of Large Tribes can help you with resolutions, letters of support, our organizations are, we have tribes in Washington State, we have tribes in Nevada, we have tribes in South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska, we have tribes in Oklahoma, geez, so many tribes, I'm trying to keep track, Montana, Wyoming. And so what that does is that allows us to use those congressional people and put in our requests on Native issues. And so don't think of this just as a forum in which we're talking about candidates. This is a forum where it's all about us. It's all about the Native people and what we can do to stay united and help each other. The only other thing that I have is throughout the day, and it's going to be a short day, so if you have a plan to catch, we plan on getting done about 1. We'll have a working lunch. But we're going to have one of our people, Justin, come up to you and see if you can do a short video. And what we want to do is use these short videos at the next forums we have. And what we would like you to discuss is the importance of us being here united and us joining together to ensure that we vote. It's very, very important. And so if he taps you on the shoulder, I'd appreciate it if you take 2 or 3 minutes to do that. And I'll say this when we do the closing today. We want and invite each and every one of you to our forums in Phoenix. We have your contact information. We will send you that. In Phoenix, we're working with the Arizona tribes. The Navajo Nation is actually part of the Coalition of Large Tribes too. So we cover the states of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. So what we would like you to consider is attending these forums that we're having in Phoenix. I don't know if you know her, but her name is Stacey Abrams. She used to be the Speaker of the House in Georgia. Then she ran for governor. She does a lot of children's books, but she's going to be there in Phoenix, and it's going to be at the Talking Sticks Casino. But she is going to talk again about the importance of the Native vote. And then she gave us her time to sit down and sign children's books and take pictures with the Native children in the book signing, and allow time to meet with tribal leaders just to discuss how we can unite moving forward. Because this, I'll say it again, Nevada, Wisconsin, Arizona, it's going to be the Native vote that selects the next president of the United States. In Montana, it's going to be the Native vote that decides who is going to be controlling the Senate. I mean, and we've seen change. We as Natives have seen change in which we've elected officials that changed the world. And we've seen change where we didn't show up, where it changed it for the worse. And so we really, really need to be strong. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our attorney, Jennifer Whittle, who is going to start the panel. And then this young lady over here, Jillian Wan, we found out we were late in so many ways that we stopped talking about relatives. And then there's my granddaughter. As you can tell, this is a family affair, Katrina. And then we consider her our daughter, Madonna. Then got other granddaughter there taking pictures. And of course, our favorite person, Jennifer Whittle. So I'm going to turn it over to you all. Get out of your way, quit talking, and hopefully we'll have a good day today.
Hello, everyone. Our first panelist is actually on Zoom, Dr. Holly Mackey, who's a member of the Northern Cheyenne Tribe and the head of the Farms Agriculture Engine at the University, North Dakota State University, which is part of a really significant initiative by the National Science Foundation, investing in technology, in research, in agriculture, and Dr. Mackey leads the only tribally focused agriculture engine, and she's going to share a little bit about the work that they're doing and how Colt and the Farms Engine are partnering on a really exciting initiative in Colorado. Dr. Mackey.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be able to, can you hear me?
Holly, we're going to have to fix the volume. We had to do this yesterday. Just one sec. Luckily, we know how to do it now. It involves OJ going to a trackpad and turning something on. It's very scary for everyone. Okay, try again, Holly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
No, perfect. Yeah, thanks for asking me to join you on this. I can't see everybody in the room, but I do see some of my absolute favorite people on the screen here, and it makes me really happy to be here with you all today. So I think just a little bit of kind of background on why I'm joining this panel and what the North Dakota Advanced Agriculture Technology Engine is all. I just lost my train of thought. I got too excited at all of the people I was seeing in the room. Okay, start over. I'm Holly Mackey. I'm CEO for the North Dakota Advanced Agriculture Technology Engine, and I'm really excited about a food security, a food sovereignty panel, because this is really the focus of all of the work that I do. So a couple of years ago, the National Science Foundation came up with this really ambitious goal to think about the ways that they could drive economic development and opportunity through technological advances in areas of the country that had previously not had a significant amount of funding invested. And so a team at North Dakota and across some of our tribal communities came together and we decided that we wanted to focus on agriculture. Obviously up here in South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, our general region, it's very ag focused. And, you know, if you want to be successful, lean into your strengths. and don't try to tackle something that you don't know anything about. So we jumped into it with agriculture. And this engine is unique. There were only 10 funded, and there were over 700 letters of intent and pre-proposals and 188 full applications that went in. So we're really proud of the fact that we're this inaugural class that has the opportunity to think about how to direct up to $160 million into communities to drive for food security at the local level. And so with our particular engine, we're the only one, as Jennifer had said, that is focused on agriculture, but we're also the only one that has an integrated, by design, tribal component. And the thinking behind that is, of course, Indigenous people have been innovators and have long understood agriculture long before settler colonialism, long before, right, all of the different practices that emerge now. And so we're helping really develop these cross-cultural understandings across both the Western and Indigenous knowledge systems to really build a stronger community where we can solve for food insecurity at the local level using technologies to really drive that equitable and local workforce development, economic opportunities in terms of thinking about businesses and companies, entrepreneurship. But ultimately in the tribal communities, it's really thinking about what values are there and what values do we want to promote and what can non-Native communities learn from the work that we're doing as we work to really think about what it means to be sovereign through a food security lens. And so we have a couple of projects that we're working on right now. And I don't want to take a whole lot of time because I know a lot of people have things to say. But so I want to talk about the Bison Initiative, but also talk about a couple of other things we're doing. We're working with MHA Nation and United Tribes Technical College looking at zero carbon greenhouses and contained farming. And we're looking at small scale farming operations that are really intended to align with the idea that a nation cannot be truly sovereign if it can't feed its people. So looking at different ways that different tribes are doing that. And then we've expanded then into working with Woju down at Standing Rock, where, you know, they're approximately 600-acre, what we call a test farm, which, you know, that's not probably what they would call themselves. And they're looking at regenerative agricultural practices, and their values are to really feed the community. So our goal through our engine is to work on a similar model, but we're looking at local solutions, right, that can be applied then globally. What can we learn from tribal communities, tribal initiatives, and the ways that we're working that can really feed the world ultimately? And so the most exciting piece to me really is the bison work that we're doing. The piece that I think is somewhat challenging, and I'm sure in all of your work you find it challenging, is to really help people who are not from our communities understand that there's a spiritual, cultural component to everything that we do that can't be extracted from moneyed interest, economic development, and agricultural practices. And so what we've been doing is we've been really thinking about the ways that we can connect people who are interested in bison rematriation and establishing cross-cultural herds and also feeding their communities, how we can help support them through technologies that allow them to engage in no-touch herd management, for example. For those of you familiar with bison, you know that we don't want to collar them, we don't want to tag them, they're our relatives, right? They're not livestock. And so we've been working with some drone technology and AI that can run metrics and help herd managers really do the work they need to do to protect our relatives and keep them safe, while also understanding how to better manage herds when we have a short supply of workforce there. And then in addition to that, we've been working with Colt on the project down in Colorado to think about what are the educational components that need to go into that? What do we need to teach people if they're going to engage in bison rematriation in a responsible way? And how are we going to ensure that we have the evidence through the use-inspired research and the case uses that we can then shift to help inform policy on what it looks like to truly co-steward and co-manage federal lands, and do that within the context of aligning to traditional cultural values. And by traditional, I don't mean just in the past. I mean like the values that we hold really dear that transcend time, right? The values of reciprocity, the values of respect, the values of like language, the values of cultural revitalization, and all of the things that go with that. And so I'm not capturing the engine really, really well because it's super big, right? If you go to farmsfeedstheworld.com, you can find out more information about that. But I think that this is an important forum because when we say that we're looking for local solutions to drive global change, the National Science Foundation, the Economic Development Agency, and several other federal agencies are really looking at the ways that tribal communities, tribal people, and tribal initiatives have really been thinking about sustainability differently. And so we are elevating Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous efforts, and all of the ways that our communities have long known how we should walk in the world, right, to a different type of level that's really driving policy around research, around investments, around initiatives. And so in partnership with a number of our colleagues, but Colt in particular has been an excellent thought partner, we're really excited about the work, how we might work with you, and how collectively, I think, to OJ's point, we can come together and really drive policy in a way that recognizes our communities for what they've always been, like innovative, forward-thinking, sustainable, right? And pairing that with new technologies that allow our communities to really mobilize and reduce the time it takes to really become self-sufficient in the food sovereignty space. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jen, because I will just talk. I'm so excited about this initiative. I'll talk the whole time, but certainly welcome any questions later. Or if you want to reach out to me, we can get you my contact information.
Awesome. Holly, thank you so much for joining us virtually today. Welcome, everyone. Just going to introduce myself very quickly. My name is Jillian Wan. I am Sicangu Lakota from the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. I am the marketing director at Sicangu Co. So you'll learn more about this special project that we have been working on at Sicangu Co. And I really just bring more of the storytelling aspect to the work that we do. And we are a very large ecosystem that consists of for-profit and nonprofit entities. So when we're talking about Buffalo, it's inclusive of everything that's a part of our culture, such as our language, food sovereignty, our Buffalo relatives, our school, our education, our health. And I think you'll see on this panel how they all impact each other. And through our ecosystem, we work closely with our initiatives, and they support each other, which has made us very successful in the work that we're doing in the community. So that's just a little background on me. I would like to see if Madonna, you can introduce yourself, please. Okay, go ahead. I think you got to push the button.
Hello. Okay. My name is Katrina Fuller, and I am Sicangu Co.'s operations officer for our internal services. And yeah, I've just been working on, we've been working in Buffalo work with Wolokota Bison Range, which is the largest tribally owned bison range in the world. So that work's included Madonna and I and Jillian, and there's a whole team of us that we've developed over these last 5 years internally that have been doing field harvest, community events around Buffalo, and then this bigger project with a few other organizations. And yeah, that's me. Go ahead, Madonna.
Hi, my name is Madonna Sitting Bear. I'm from the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. I initially work most of the time in capacity of being a consultant with this work. Originally, my husband was part of the Redco team, and so I got to watch them develop this whole ecosystem based upon language revitalization, food sovereignty, creating this Wolokota Buffalo Ranch, all of these different things, adult language immersion, all of this. And when he left that position, I was able to come on as a team member. And from that point, we just started working directly with the buffalo, doing our traditional buffalo harvest, inviting in the Lakota Immersion School children to come in, their families, to help us do this work. And so for me, that's where my passion came in, was in a more personal capacity, and it's just grown since then. I actually work with Dr. Holly Mackey here. I do consultant work with her, wrapped around the rematriation of the buffalo. I work very closely still, obviously, with Katrina and the team, and with Jen here, but it's all based upon food sovereignty through how we bring our buffalo back, how that creates a healthier system for us, healthier mind and thinking Lakota, and how that all just combines itself to bringing us back to how our ancestors used to live.
Can you, Katrina, share more about the special project that you're currently working on? Oh, I thought you introduced yourself already, Jen. Sorry. Okay.
You guys have heard from me for 2 days, so go ahead, Katrina.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, can you share more about the special project that you're currently working on with the team?
Oh, okay. So our special project, we've kind of nicknamed our Buffalo Olympic Project. And it really started with a just random by chance meeting with the Department of Interior's Office of Strategic Partnerships. And from there, it really took off. And Madonna, I mean, yourself, and a few others at Si Changu have had to come together to really push a part of our herd that it's been a phase, which is the value-added products that come from buffalo. So jerky. I mean, we've had beef and beef packages before. I mean, not beef, but buffalo packages with ground meat and stew meat before. But using the bones and the hide and things like that have always been just another phase that should be coming up. But with this project specifically, of course, we had the opportunity with the Olympics coming up to really connect what indigenous health looks like across the world. And in light of the Olympics, we partnered with Sacred Storm Buffalo. They're an indigenous ran processing facility. And they not only they not only came out with us to harvest the buffalo, but they did the jerky processing also. And we worked with a few others to create this. It's been beautiful. It's been beautiful packaging, but really tying buffalo back to being a gift, being a prayer, being a good relative, and really being at the forefront of what good health looks like for us with our kids, with athletes. And this project is still ongoing, so we've been able to work with Nike N7 to send some of this gift out to athletes. And then next, we're going to be working with our immersion schools and our own community members to just share this gift with everyone.
Katrina, can you name one or two challenges that you've faced as you have been working on this project that you think it's important for, the individuals who are here to maybe help advocate for?
There's been challenges at every step. I mean, I'll name a few challenges, but I know Madonna, and I'm sure you have a few challenges also that you've seen. But it's a huge project, and I think our first challenge was we've been managing this herd for the last 4 or 5 years, but to actually move from caretaking to the next phase of well, what do we do with we want a jerky product, and to move from the cultural harvest to actually a sustainable business model for our buffalo that still encompasses our own values and our own ways of doing things. That's been a challenge, and I think just understanding the expenses around what it really takes to do something like this. And then Sacred Storm was definitely a gift from our creator, because before we partnered with them, we really didn't have very many options for indigenous producers, indigenous processors. And so it was so coincidental that they had started around the same time we started this project. They got the facility going, and they had a great crew of young Native men that came out, and they have a whole workforce development side. So I think that was our first challenge we ran into was we have the herd, we need a partner. And, luckily, things just kind of aligned there. The next one for me was really understanding the USDA labeling process. You cannot get a label for any product overnight. There's so much that goes into it. The labs for testing, the packaging itself, the wording, the designs, everything. There's so much that goes into it, and that part was kind of difficult, and also expensive. I mean, what did they say? It's not as expensive to process beef as it is buffalo because you need not only to have that USDA label, but also an inspector throughout the whole process. And that was very, very expensive. I think it took about 2 days to harvest and then a week to process it. And that whole time from start to finish, they had to have an inspector. And it was about $15,000 just for that. And yeah, just working through those first time challenges also out in the field was also kind of difficult. I mean, we're still learning.
So earlier,
Anything?
earlier Holly mentioned, being close to the communities themselves because we need local solutions. And I think Madonna could really speak to this as she's been so involved within the ecosystem. But not just herself, her entire family, her kids, her husband. And Madonna, can you speak to, some of the impact that the buffalo itself and the experiences that you've had have impacted your family and why this is so important for this project's jerky to reach the Olympics?
So I kind of want to go back to the question that you asked Katrina about the challenges that are being faced with the buffalo and the processing and all of that stuff. I think one of the challenges that we also face is not just processing and all of that, but if we take it back culturally, it becomes how do we not treat our relatives as cattle? And then when we bring in something like Sacred Storms, who, they just bought Wild Ideas facility, how do we not, as Native people running that business, treat our cattle, or treat our buffalo like cattle by, pushing them through the system and stuff. And I see that for me is one of the challenges, is keeping that cultural and spiritual piece of it in with all of this, but also creating a sustainable economical system for our people, which then it goes into like trade systems, for our Lakota people. The impacts that I've had with my children actually come through the Lakota Immersion School that, has been created by Sicangu Co. My child has been able to go in every single year. The families get called and we get to take part in actually harvesting our own buffalo relative, and we start, from the beginning, they're being taught culturally how to take care of our relatives. And so our children are starting to learn this, and my kids walk around singing these buffalo songs because that's what they've been taught, the prayer songs that go along with it. So from day one, from sweat to finishing it up, those are the impacts that my family is singing. But not only that, but taking it and creating the language that facilitates and helps, push it more, has been a really huge impact. So it kind of all comes together. Then you think of them, as young children being able to provide their own food and processing that themselves, teaching them how to use knives, teaching them how to actually, take meat from the buffalo, our relatives, and all of it. And so it's been a great impact, and it's awesome to see my own children and teaching the older ones who can't, who aren't at the school, being able to teach them these things as a younger sibling to older siblings. And so for us, that's how largely it's impacted. And then you look at where it's grown from for me, and it's gone from just the passion of harvesting and wanting to know the culture behind it, to being able to sit here today as a consultant based on buffalo work. So yeah, that's how it's impacted us.
All right, Jen. Can we please tell us about the special projects that you are working on?
So really, everybody on this panel is working on this project. So this is a project down at the Medno Zapata Ranch in Colorado, which sits in the heart of Great Sand Dunes National Park and the Baca Wildlife Preserve in southwest Colorado, outside of Alamosa, near the New Mexico border. An area that is historically home to more than 20 tribes that have strong ties to that area. I have lots of pictures on the screen to share from the work, and a great picture of the buffalo relatives that we're working with down there. You all know that Colt is a Section 17 corporation formed to represent the interests of the more than 50 tribes that have reservations of 100,000 acres or more. Those tribes comprise more than 95% of all Indian land in the United States and represent more than half the Native American population. The Colt board sets policy unanimously, so every action Colt takes has to be unanimous. And under O.J. Seaman's leadership as the executive director, as O.J. says, he wears a lot of feathers, but we're so grateful to have his leadership in Colt and to be able to focus on food sovereignty, on land policy, land back. Bison restoration is a huge priority for Colt as well, in addition to all the public safety issues that we talked about yesterday. And I'm going to bring up the map to show you guys, I hope. Okay. Switching to the PDF. Okay. Can we see this? Hopefully it gets on screen. There's this weird lag in the room here. So that hopefully it comes up. You guys will see it instead of more pictures. We should have like the little Jeopardy music or something as we're waiting for it.
Oh, shoot. No, I don't think we're going to be able to share it.
I don't know why it's not sharing. Trying again.
You have to switch the screen.
Let's go back to share here,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll select the right screen. There you go.
That's why we need the youth leading these panels, because they know how to work these things. Okay, so this is the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve. And you can see in the green shaded areas, this is all Great Sand Dunes. And then zooming in within that, you have these, what's called the Medno Ranch, the Zapata Ranch, ranches that have been acquired by the Nature Conservancy and held for decades now. This whole area represented on this map is roughly 300,000 acres. There is a 1,700 animal buffalo herd that is presently held by TNC that runs on the Medno Zapata Ranch, and we are trying to get them access to the entirety of the Baca Wildlife Preserve and the National Park, about 300,000 acres, pursuing co-stewardships for Colt as a Section 17 with the Fish and Wildlife Service, with the National Park Service. The Intertribal Buffalo Council is a critical partner in this work, and they are going to take over management of the herd at the end of the year. It has been managed for several years by a non-native for-profit group that operates a dude ranch at the property. But we are going to take that over. Now I'm going to switch back to the slides, I hope. Switching back to the slides. So we've been in very active discussions with the National Park Service, the Fish and Wildlife Service, Indian Affairs. We had a big all-hands-on-deck meeting with the federal folks just 2 weeks ago down at Medno Zapata. There's a significant facility there to be able to bring in the buffalo when you need to. They have an incredible space. and a lot of people working on the broad intersection of legal and policy issues to make this a reality. The idea is that the herd, once under tribal stewardship, would become a feeder herd for tribes and individual Indians that want to be able to come be with those buffalo on this land and then take buffalo home to their reservations when they've acquired enough land to sustain them. There's a significant guest ranch facility, which we'd like to turn into a tribal education facility, working with Holly and her program to be able to bring students from universities and tribal colleges down to the ranch to learn hands-on with the buffalo, be engaged in language immersion, be doing all of the great work that's happening at Rosebud and expand that to other places so that we can truly rematriate that land and those buffalo. We know that that herd is descended from a herd initially gathered at Cheyenne River and taken to Yellowstone. They're very genetically diverse herd. Anticipating one of your questions, Jillian, one of our current challenges is working with the conflicting federal policy that is very focused on genetic purity of buffalo and resisting that and trying to ensure that the National Park Service in particular follows President Biden's executive order on indigenous, or his guidance on indigenous knowledge and his executive order on tribes leading, using indigenous knowledge in interior decisions. That's a bit of a challenge. We have lots of overlapping environmental documents, such as the 2020 ungulate management plan that there was no tribal consultation on, and trying to get all of the different families within the Department of the Interior to work with us in this goal of an indigenous-led initiative. And it's been great to have the strong partnership of the Nature Conservancy Colorado in that effort. I think it's a real turning point in the relationship between tribes and some of the NGOs that have been working in this space, and we're now really hand in hand together to try to make this happen for our people.
Awesome. So we would like to, yes, clap for that. That's awesome. Good stuff. We would like to open it up to any questions that either of you might have. And remember, Holly is still on the call. Yes, OJ?
One thing I didn't hear is looking for tribal support to get a indigenous committee inside the Olympic framework there. Can you basically tell the tribes what you would look for support and what you're trying to do?
Well, we have a COLT resolution, and part of that resolution and part of, the collaborations with NCAI and Nike and some support and resources with DOI. And then, of course, we went to this event last week too with in DC with Ben Jacobs, and it's been really amazing to really hear from other organizations on how we need to do this. But we are already thinking about LA 2028, and we've been in contact with the American Olympic Committee, as well as COLT, as well as DOI and the Native American Council of Native American Affairs. But to establish an Indigenous Olympic Committee alongside the American Olympic Committee for LA 2028 to really tell our stories, make sure they're included with the Olympics, our culture, of course, by Indian and Native producers, not just buffalo, but also some of the things that were tossed around were like salmon, deer, other indigenous foods to be incorporated throughout the Olympics. Yeah.
So along with that and requesting, support for the 2028 Olympics, which will be in LA then, if we think about it in the system of how they set it up, they set up a village for all of the athletes. And so why can't we have a piece of that village dedicated to indigenous people, to our natives here within the United States, I do know that they're working on getting the Haudenosaunee team, and they're requesting Biden to ask the Olympics to, basically allow them to compete as their own nation within the United States. And he is supportive of that. I'm sure you know more about that, and probably talk about that. But, and that's another prime example of like how we are in the system, but also need that support. And they need that support too, in order to, put that into the Olympic Committee and help them with that decision too. I just wanted to bring that up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Some of the things we were already thinking about was, of course, we can't be the only bison herd that's a part of this. I mean, we're gonna have to work with other herds. And this project is gonna be very important for that. As well as other indigenous producers. And, what I loved about last week with Ben Jacobs was he was talking about the Haudenosaunee, he was talking about stickball, and we were able to see a traditional game. But that should be a part of the Olympics, that, those stories. The way he explained lacrosse, Oren, their spiritual leader and elder Oren from Haudenosaunee, was that there was so much behind the game, and it really helped me understand the importance of our origin stories, the importance of holding on to our indigenous knowledge, and really sharing it with people, because it really helped me when I was listening to their stories.
What I heard is this cross collaboration is so important, especially, Katrina talked about some of the challenges that she's faced, and as well as our team, but we've always been able to call someone, and the information is there, and so this cross collaboration is so important. And we were in DC at the lacrosse event, and everybody was asking, how is this relevant to Buffalo? Well, it really provided us an opportunity to get the jerky into the community's hands and support Indigenous athletes. And they were young athletes, and they were just truly inspired by the message behind it. The empowerment that you feel when you learn about the buffalo, and it also provided an educational opportunity to talk about not just buffalo and its importance economically, but holistically as well. But also we were able to, it opened the door to talk about our language initiatives, our economic opportunities in our community. And so you can really see how Buffalo just is this huge platform for Indigenous communities. And I think what's beautiful about this project is it's going to be another way for us to inspire other communities to uplift what's important in their communities and bring it into the Olympics, hopefully in 2028. And so I apologize that we have to cut this a little bit short. I know we have another panel that needs to go next, but I do want to give the opportunity for any final messages that either of you would like to share.
Buffalo have been very important. I can't eat beef, just health issues, so buffalo have been very helpful for that. I can eat buffalo. But one thing that we have had to point out is our bison are our national mammal. They're very important, and one thing Ben Jacobs said last week that I really loved was that this is not Indigenous food, this is American food. And I just want everyone to keep that in mind as we keep going. But there are so many opportunities that I think we really just need to focus and continue doing what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, this larger herd is going to be great for me. But yeah, thank you, everyone.
I might just jump in for a second to say, we've always followed the buffalo, and if the buffalo come back, we come back. And we're looking at this as whole ecosystem restoration. The buffalo, we've demonstrated many times now when they're back on the land, other species come back, plant species come back, pollinators come back. This is about much more than just the herd, and it's their role in all of the fabric of our lives. And to the health point and the food sovereignty point, buffalo don't get cancer, and I see Lesser shaking his head. I knew he wanted me to bring that up. very few animals that don't get cancer, and making, restoring our health to our people by putting buffalo back in our diets.
I think the only thing I want to leave with is a reminder that, during the insurrection, there was this man and he was jailed, right, for the insurrection. And while he was in prison, right, federal prison or wherever he was being held, he got to request a special dietary meal for himself. And, the government system gave that to him. And so why should we not be able to fight for our own food sovereignty, our own food systems within everything that we do? And, I want to encourage everyone out there, like, whatever it is, if you're home gardening, if you can get to a traditional harvest, do whatever you can, because when the time comes and, I don't know, like zombie apocalypse, we will know how to take care of ourselves. So I just want to live with that, or end with that.
And Holly should get the last word. She had the first word. She should get the last word, too.
I think that those are all, really, really great words. One of the things that, in addition to that, food security is, in fact, national security. And it's not just us saying it. We have the FBI saying it. We have the CIA saying it. We have Missile Command in North Dakota acknowledging that and really applauding the work that's happening that you've heard about on the panel today as a way to think about how Indigenous knowledge is, in fact, so important for the future of this nation. And so, while we do hear the stories and we're uplifted and we're validated, I think I would want to end with just reminding everyone that we're also leading the way. People are looking to us for that direction. People are looking to the women sitting in that room, right, for the guidance that is necessary, because they've demonstrated over and over again that this is something that we're doing and we're doing well. And so just really would like people to join us on this journey. Like, being stronger together is going to be important.
Such a powerful message. Thank you so much. And shout out to the P'teo Yate. Yes. Please give it up for our panelists. Yes.
We got a grant to bring more buffalo to our reservation, but some of our people, some are saying brucellosis, but I think that comes from elk, but then biscuit and cattle. So it's unfortunate that our relative, the Boha, the Bojana, we call it, the buffalo Nulago, which is in jeopardy, and it's causing these things, even amongst our own people. Our land bases are so small. So we try to get more land to bring them out there to the wild, to make the wild herds. But anyway, that's very important, that buffalo. And I shared a little bit last night with OJ about the Boha, the power significance that I use in ceremonies. But what did you guys take on that brucellosis? And how do we tell people that it's not I don't know, how would you say it, to help advocate for, to say, hey, that's wrong, and taking them out like that and give them more habitat, things like that. Thank you.
Sure, and that was, I don't know if everybody will be able to hear that on the recording, but Chairman Liwan Tendoy from the Shoshone-Bannock tribes talking about local concerns about potential brucellosis, infections in cattle coming from buffalo. It's really not a concern. ITBC has demonstrated that scientifically for years. Brucellosis occurs naturally in elk, which freely roam amongst populations as well. So the idea that there's some special danger from having additional animals who also carry brucellosis in the area is frankly ridiculous. That's a legal and policy issue that we're dealing with in a lot of other places, including Colorado right now. There's going to be a bill to specifically treat buffalo as wildlife and not agricultural stock animal. Again, brucellosis is naturally occurring in many wild animals. So that's part of the policy management. And lesser,
I've been helping, my wife works at CSU and large buffalo. And every year we go out there and do the blessing at CSU for the buffalo herd. And I talked to Jen, she's the lead scientist, and she said, brucellosis is just a VD. It's a STD that all animals get. And it's very easy to cure, she said, with antibiotics, but the government won't pay for the antibiotics. So that's why it spread. Like up in Wind River, we used to elk up there. And out of 3 elk we got, 1 always had brucellosis. But once you antibiotic them, just like our bodies, then it's curable. So there's no danger in it.
I think we had one other question, comment. Oh, go ahead,
Real
Madonna.
quick, I wanted to say too that with that disease, that originated amongst cattle who were then put in with the population of buffalo. And so it was mainly like cattle who were confined to certain areas. And that's why the land mass is key for buffalo to be able to roam naturally, to keep themselves clean and healthy and not be in those situations with cattle, domestic animals.
Ladies, I just want to thank you all. My heart is soaring. I got misty-eyed. I'm sure that it's not a coincidence that this panel and all this work is being done by Native women. But I want to make sure. So I want to share 2 things. When we have opportunities, thank you, OJ, to get together, I come with an approach that I want to share information, but really I want to steal ideas. I want to take what you all are doing, and you're doing it so well. This project, it is ideal. You have these successes on the ground. You're talking about teaching youngsters. So, this is potential economic development. It's preserving the traditions and the current contemporary lifestyles. It has a language component. It reaches to mainstream America. The buffalo is such a huge symbol of all Native cultures. But so thank you, OJ. I've learned so much in the last 2 days, but this conversation alone was worth my trip from the Capitol. I also wanted to share with you, again, one of the reasons this is so amazing, in our area, in what is now Nevada, with all due respect, it's important for you all to know, we have the highest elected leader here from the Doi Dukata, the cattail eaters. Chair Williams, Chair Wadsworth, he represents our relatives who are part of the Kwi-wi eaters. My tribe, we're the trout eaters in our area, in the Great Basin. We've always identified ourselves by what we ate. So you all have just given me, so much information to process, to talk about how, again, we can tweak your ideas to make those help us do outreach about trout fishing. And the whole idea of food sovereignty it's just so incredible. It's so important. It was before the pandemic, but here in our area, it's a little bit bragging, but the Walker River Paiute Nation, we closed our borders during the pandemic and set up our own food systems for our tribal citizens, and it continues today. The Washoe Nation of Nevada and California, they expanded their beef, their cattle production. At one point, they offered all other 20 tribes, 28 nations, to provide fresh beef for them. So, Pisha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's again another interesting topic that was brought up, and we talk about food sovereignty and how we try to provide for our people a healthier choice. And so on our reservation back home, I was just texting a couple of our grants committee because we just got a grant. We didn't just get it. We've had it for almost a year and a half now. But it's a grant that we received from USDA, and it's a $15 million grant. And what we're utilizing with that $15 million grant is we're buying from local producers. And when I say local producers, it's just not corn, potatoes, whatever. It's Chayaka, which is our tea, our Timsala, which is our native turnip, you know, and our buffalo. We spent $80,000 with our local processor providing buffalo meat. So whenever our tribal members go and get their, we call them commodities, but their rations or whatnot, they now have the opportunity to say, I don't want beef, I want buffalo. And now we have so much that we're going into our 9 districts with semi-loads of freezer truck semis going in and just giving it away. They'll put it on our social media and say, at this site, we're giving away buffalo until it's all gone. So we're initiating that, but also we're putting back into our own economic development and our own tribal members to say, you know, if you want to go get 50 ounces of Chayaka, this is how much we're paying for Chayaka today. Boom. And we have all these people coming in, and so they're doing their own local harvesting, their own local, and we're also utilizing our own local butcher or processing guy that's there. And so that's one of the initiatives that we're taking part on our reservation, to making sure that we're incorporating our traditional foods with what's being given with the commodities. So.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, Tyler.
In our language, we call them tatanka.
Tatanka. I don't know where I got that word.
To kind of talk more, just to give it a little more in depth, you know, Tyler's talking about the local processors and stuff, and I know who that is right there, like within the community, but there's also, you know, the new Sacred Storms. And I kind of wanted to talk about the economic part of it, of like the workforce. You know, Sacred Storms is located up in Rapid City, which is an urban area where we have all these different tribal people up there. And what they're doing is they're working with young teens, young men, young youth, people who are coming out of the system, and they're creating a technical skill for them to be able to utilize later on. And so they're offering them these job positions. And so it just kind of, everything just goes in this, you know, revolving like circle and everything. And so I just wanted to point that out, how important those processing facilities are for us in order to create, you know, those jobs, but also the skill sets for our people to do something traditional.
I wanted to just add in on that workforce support comes out of having a diverse group of people involved in the project from the beginning, and that's something I think is really going to push the success of the Medno Zapata project. Is we have education policy with Holly. Jody Archambault is part of our tight-knit working group on the philanthropy side. Rick Williams and Wombly Williams are key players in that. Wombly is going to do a tour of, you know, all 27 tribes with historic connections and go to every council and make sure they're engaged. Doing videos and production on social media so that individual tribal producers can be involved, so that we're not getting bogged down and putting another burden on individual tribal governments, but rather coming together on an intertribal basis to do these things and make the opportunities bigger for more natives.
Can I add on just one thing to that? I don't know if you guys can also, I know they're trying to wrap up this panel, but it's so good, right?
You're good, Holly. Good.
You know, and so, yeah, I think that because we have so many people, so many thought leaders coming to the table, I think that is important. But then I think we're also networking across initiatives very, very well. So, you know, as everybody was talking, you know, like we have Madonna as a consultant on farms to make sure that we can connect resources and opportunities, right, through things that she identifies. You just brought up Wombly, and we also have Wombly on contract, right, to help our innovation team think about how they can advance that work. And then we also have, I think, to the workforce development piece, you know, we're really thinking about the fact that we want jobs for people, and that's great. But we have some really forward-thinking young people who are actually entrepreneurs and have ideas that can help drive our communities forward. And so I think it's those connections where, like with our engine, we're looking at how do we support entrepreneurship? We're connected to VC and investment and business development and all of these things. And so I think to the woman's point about, you know, seeing how people are doing it is a good blueprint, and we want to take from that. And I think this is so much more complex yet fundamentally strong because we're collaborating but then we're collaborating across organizations and we're figuring out who has the pieces to put in. And then we're leveraging our strengths as opposed to kind of doing it disparately all out of that. And it takes a lot of coordination and time to do that. But I think that whole full circle model is something I would want people to understand that we're doing, because none of us have all of the answers, but each of us has some of the answer. And I think that we're leveraging each of the sum of the answers together to create a really robust, right, use case that shows us that we can do this effectively.
Might I? No, go ahead.
Yeah. I'll just keep it short. I think we got a very similar grant. I don't think it was definitely not as much as that, to give out bison meat to our community also. But one of the things that I love about the feeder herd is one of the big visions that I wanted to see I used to be our Sicangu Coast Health Initiative Director a couple months ago, and then I switched positions. But we run a food prescription and health coaching program. It's a 6-month program. And one of the things I've always wanted to see with it that we've been building up to is not only providing food prescriptions for fresh and frozen produce, but also with buffalo meat. And that's just a big dream of mine. And part of that too is what they're actually finding nationally with food prescription programs is people will still buy the same foods. If you give them a prescription, they're still going to go to the store and buy the same foods that they've been eating. So they'll buy potatoes or they'll buy just lettuce, but they won't try asparagus, and they won't try to incorporate other diverse foods in their diet unless you cook it with them. So that's kind of where the health coaching part comes in. And so really helping people step out of their shell with food is another bridge itself. And then tasting new foods, even tasting our traditional foods and pushing them to do that is another bridge we have to cross. But yeah, it's just buffalo are important not only for eating every day, but also for those that are struggling with health issues and things like that. And there's so many ways to go with this. But I really love this project and how it really helped me work through the bureaucracy, work through the technical stuff. One of the things I found out was that just correct me if I'm wrong, but there has never been an indigenous USDA meat inspector before, which is crazy to me, because why wouldn't we be the ones doing it? But yeah. It's just a lot of learning, and there's so many things our buffalo are needed for. This project is really awesome.
And I'll just add, if there's anybody who's thinking about advancing this type of work, the marketing aspect is really important. It's so vital for community members to see themselves in the photos that you utilize, to see themselves in the videos. It's important for these opportunities to be available to the community. I've noticed that usually it's marketing you don't realize you need it till you need it, and it's usually left out. So that's an investment to be made. And also it's important to have, merchandise to gift to your community, to gift to even communities nationally, to help promote the work that is being done in your communities. Because it opens the door again for those educational opportunities, and good merchandise. I really see that as a good investment into people. So I think that's something to be mindful of too. All right, I think we're wrapping it up now. Well, thank you, Dr. Holly.
Just so you know, we were visiting the other night, and these young ladies were talking, and I was so impressed. I said, you know what, you guys are on a panel. No. But that's right. But two things. If you want any help or to have a presentation like this done to your council. I can't promise you the full, everybody there, but we can get as many people as we can just to run that process through tribal council and tribal members and stuff, because our goal has always been to take and stay with our culture and to share our knowledge. And it doesn't, like Stacy said, it doesn't have to be buffalo. It could be salmon, it could be trout. It's just something that we need to start owning again. One thing I'll tell you about Woolakota is the fact that when we first got that, it was run down by cattle. The grass was eaten all the way, you couldn't even find it. And so we started Woolakota, and when we did it, we had the Wildlife Service and different agencies come in, and they took ground samples, they took photographs, and within 5 years, and you heard Jen say it, we got our traditional plants back. We got different animals that disappeared coming back onto the land. We got our sacred plants back. I mean, so just bringing, excuse me, bringing our buffalo back was able to bring so much more back that left because of the cattle. So, and the same is going to be true for every tribe, and regardless of, like Steve said, what you identify, that's going to be true for every tribe in Nevada. So I'm going to go on a lunch break, but I want to talk a little bit because I heard Madonna mention it. Her husband's Wheezy Little Paw, or Wheezy Paw Little Elk, Garriott. He was the first CEO that started with Redco, and it went from Redco to Sikanju Co. And if you saw the stickers they were given out last night, there was three teepee poles. And basically that's the foundation of our teepees, and they're the strongest portion of the support of that. Well, he went and had a vision, and what you're seeing now is part of his vision. And I'm bringing this into voting in a way that people may not see it, but I see this as spiritually. Because of what happened in 2020, we got the very first Native female as the Secretary of Interior. And when she got there, that was because of the Native vote. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was because of the Native vote, and that's kind of how I'm tying this in there. And so when she got on, what she wanted was young, intelligent Native people to go into the Department of Interior, to go into the BIA. So Wheezy Paw had this dream, and next thing you know, he is the principal assistant secretary of Indian Affairs. And what they tell him is, we want you to make sure that we work the buffalo program. I mean, so he was pulled out of home, taken to Washington to do what he has been dreaming of doing all this time. And so this all happened because we showed up at the polls. We were able to get natives that are in key positions that handle what we deal with every day, the Department of Interior. And you got to remember, the Department of Interior at one time was the War Department. So we actually have a female warrior heading the old War Department. That's what I always tell Mr. Austin, that he has his work cut out for him now. We're going to have a working lunch, if you don't mind. Lunch is out there. Go ahead. We'll give like everybody 15 minutes to grab their lunch, bring it in, and then we're going to have 2 more panels. Once that's done, tribal leaders, if you want, you can go. But what we're going to be doing after that is we're going to be actually plotting and planning and putting our program together for our Phoenix Forum. So you're welcome to stay for that, but if you, you know, have travel plans, you have to leave. We're just so honored and glad that you've stayed as long as you have. And we would really enjoy your company while we're planning, because you may have ideas that we need. But let's go ahead and grab lunch. And one of the things that this panel didn't say, they kind of alluded to it, but what they would like from the Intertribal Council, and Coalition has already done it, and they would send you the draft language, but what they would like to do is have the Intertribal Council do a resolution of support, and it don't have to be Buffalo. In that resolution, it should identify all of the sacred foods that we have as tribes in Nevada, and really stress the importance of creating an indigenous committee within the U.S. Olympics. So with that, oh, sir.
I missed out on some of the panel I had in the interview, but I know some of my relatives come from Nevada too, Austin, Nevada. Their grandmothers, there was two Paiute ladies. But anyway, long story short, to speed things up, they were wiping out the pinyon pines, Diva. They were wiping that out. And they had big anchor chains with bulldozers about 50 yards apart, or even further. And then those big anchor chains that go on those aircraft carrier ships. They get the ground and wiped them out, wiped out the habitat. And there was some ladies that were fighting for dances. It's called the Trail of Broken Treaties. Did you guys talk about that?
No.
But anyway, they have 2 documentaries. That's significant. They're gone now. They fought. They were cattlemen. They had a brother that they were fighting for. He put himself on fire. That was going on in the late 60s and 70s. They brought in helicopters, wiping out wild horses. But all those the certificates of those sovereignty of those plants, you know, are getting destroyed. It's happening everywhere. Habitat and native medicinal plants, sacred sites, all these things. But we're going to go have lunch. Thank you.
How? Whoopka.
And this year, the Nevada leaders were able to stop the commercial pine picking in Nevada this year.
Yes. And that should be Olympian food. All right, let's have lunch. And about 15 minutes, we'll give the multicultural panel a chance to get ready.
You'll actually want to ask Donna, because she's going to be the one who knows the most. Yeah, because I'll actually be working with Donna to edit everything ready. And then just keep that all up. And then go back to the 4 directions. Just that. And just leave it.
I was just gonna edit it so it looks better.
That's what I'm trying to change.
The option is, leave about 8 or 10-year-olds, file a program. Get all that or still kind of need that. Wait,
Easy with Tyree Hill just running that straight, put that ball up and let him run through it.
Well, over $500,000, but not quite, you know. It was 1.8 million that went down. I like to mention that.
It's always nice to see.
Nothing like a notice, that's right.
It was okay. A lot of things going on, Simon Freeman. Yeah, that reunion too. Yeah. The lady that wants to do that lady that was there. She's a lady. She was a little lady. Somebody's name. You should give me a right tonight. I think all that they have a call. Somebody went home for it. So what, we had tired. I'll get one. 8 hours. If we don't stop going. We go this way, might have to ski out, I don't want to do that. Well, let's go up to the Ely, that's quite fast. I mean, it's shorter, but it's. But when the map is shorter. It'll take 9 hours. Not bad. You did? Well, I want to spend the night on the worship tomorrow. Yeah. You could do it just leaving.
If there was an emergency, no, I would. You could have got lost and been calling, but no. Oh no, last time I was here, you were out. I didn't need to go to bed, and then my foot was so I went from being out of hours to having I didn't have to wake up until like 30 minutes before that time to go. And yeah, I just shoved it all in my suitcase. And then I was still late to the airport. I was so sorry. Oh, you're driving. How about that?
No. Never just bypass, you never been married.
Uh-huh. Well, I got your number, man. All right, well, remember Phoenix is coming up. Okay. Or, yeah, well, that one's Wisconsin, and, yeah, bring your dancing gear, because their powwow's going on. Donnie, you wanna get your panel down here? Notice I said your panel? Good. Yeah, you need Tyler. Donna's supposed to be coming in. Donna? Yeah. I don't remember. I don't make them out. Yeah, let's put 3 and 3.
Yeah, that side would be better if they were, oh, they're gonna be on both sides?
Uh-huh. Doksha.
Steve, Tyler, that was it.
Me neither. Are we going one table or 2 tables?
Probably 2 tables. You're gonna fit one more, we go 3 and 3, yeah.
No, that's why I got
Just talking off the cuff, right? No, what last name do you go by? You don't go by Siemens, do you? Your last name? You don't go by Siemens? Do you? Oh, okay.
Let's get it going. Fight with Howard. What'd he say?
I'm gonna stake myself down. Okay, are we all set?
I think we're just talking off the cuff.
OJ, ready to go?
Speaking
OJ,
off the cuff.
ready to go?
You're just gonna-
Okay.
it's gonna be a dialogue.
Which mic is this one? Okay.
Should I do my Clinton impersonation? Appreciate it. We helped me do that. I never asked Monica to lie in her deposition. I just asked her.
You are perfect now.
All right, everybody, I think we're gonna get started here.
No, we're gonna record one.
Everyone said, I think they're filming this, okay.
Hey, I got any more?
All right, hamita ki api, chante washte na pe chiuzapelo. Chetan washte machi api. Hello, my relatives. My name is Don Ragona. I'm a citizen of the Matinecock Indian Nation of New York. Grew up on the Pine Ridge and Rosebud reservations, and when I wasn't there, I was on my grandmother's reservation out east back in New York. I'm the development director and the House Counsel for the Native American Rights Fund in Boulder, Colorado. And before we get started, I want to just thank the Tribal Nations of Nevada, Colt, and Four Directions Native Vote for making these forums possible. So thank you very much for that. You know, for those of you that don't know, the Native American Rights Fund was founded in 1970 and is led by our executive director, John Echohawk. It's the premier legal organization that has for the past 54 years provided legal representation and advice on major issues of importance to Indian tribes, Native organizations, and individuals nationwide who might otherwise have gone without adequate representation. NARF has successfully asserted and defended most of the important rights of Indian tribes in hundreds of major cases and has achieved significant results in such critical areas as tribal sovereignty, treaty rights, natural resource protection, Indian education, and of course, extensive work in preserving Native voting rights. NARF's headquarters are in Boulder, Colorado, and we have satellite offices in Washington, D.C. and Anchorage, Alaska. Now, in NARF's early years, our original steering committee knew it would be difficult to determine which cases to select to take from a multitude of requests for assistance that we were receiving. So to help guide that selection process and our work, they came up with 5 priorities
which still guide our work today. Preservation of tribal existence, protection of tribal natural resources, promotion of Native American human rights, holding governments accountable to Native peoples, and the development of Indian law and education of the public. It's that third priority, the promotion of Native human rights, is what we're going to be focusing on today. The right to vote and the right to participate in the democratic process is also a human right. Back in 2013, the U.S. Supreme Court invalidated an entire section of the Voting Rights Act. NARF and other civil rights groups took action and founded the Native American Voting Rights Coalition, of which Four Directions was also a founding member of. That coalition's original purpose was to work on congressional amendments that would restore protection to minority voters, as well as reviewing the laws of many states who have enacted laws that could impact the ability of Native peoples to vote or even register to vote. Since then, NAVRAC has grown to be much more. And today, we've taken action, both NARF and its allies like Four Directions have taken action to redress voting rights violations in the courts in such states as Arizona, Alaska, North Dakota, Nevada, to name a few. Now, over the past several years, we've seen more and more issues arise regarding and issues and efforts by state legislatures to keep and to interfere with Native people's rights to vote. And whether it's actual voting or whether it's to register to vote, you're seeing active interference of that. This is not only happening to Native people, but it's also happening to other communities of color who are experiencing similar issues. Today, we're living in a time where it seems more and more like American democracy is sliding towards minority rule. And you don't have to think long or hard to figure out why. And additionally, as more and more Native people and people of color are beginning to run for public office, we're hearing that they too are having issues and by having obstacles and issues placed before them when they try to run for public office. Our panel today will be highlighting some of those issues, the obstacles these folks are facing, and hopefully introduce some strategies on how we can push back against this effort to suppress our rights as American citizens as well as tribal citizens, and to participate in the political process. So joining me on our panel today, we'll start on to my right, Jalen Elrod, Field Director for Four Directions Native Vote, Steve Cisneros, to my left, Director of Voter Engagement for Four Directions Native Vote, Tyler Yellowboy, Oglala Sioux Tribal Councilman. And Mike Simpkins, political organizer and campaign consultant. And last but not least, Donna Siemens, Four Directions. So panel, welcome. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you guys joining us today. And first, what I'd like to do is just give you all a chance to kind of introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about your work, and then we'll kind of get into some of the questions we're going. And we can start with, why don't we start with the ladies? I didn't even see you there. I didn't know you were on my panel.
I know, I'm here now. Surprise. My name is Jennifer Crow. I am a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I come here from Kansas City, where I'm an attorney. I'm a lobbyist by trade. I have the fortune to work with clients. We're a contract lobby firm. So I have the fortune to work with clients like ACLU and with a charitable foundation in Kansas and Missouri that is focused on access to voting and other race equity issues. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I've been with Four Directions since 2010. I've worked closely with Donna, with all of these folks. And I'm excited to talk about the work that we do.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. Donna?
My name is Donna Siemens. I am a member of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe in Rosebud, South Dakota. I have been the grassroots director for Four Directions for about 20 years. I'm not ready to quit anytime soon.
Thanks, Donna. Steve?
My name's Steve Cisneros. I actually live in South Florida, originally from Kansas, like Jen. Worked in government politics for a number of years. Initially was a political appointee in the Clinton administration, and since then worked on a number of campaigns, a number of issues, and I have the pleasure of working with Four Direction, and I'm excited to help, communities, Native communities remove any impediments to voting that may exist.
Great, thanks. Let's bounce back over to this table. Jalen?
Hey everyone, Jalen Elrod, Field Director for Four Directions Native Vote. Prior to this, I was the third vice chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party. Before that, first vice chair of the Greenville County Democratic Party, the largest county in South Carolina. And before that, was president of our Young Democrats chapter. And between that, was able to work on about now 45 political campaigns and voter registration initiatives across the country. Primarily do field and data analytics related to GOTV and minority voter turnout, low propensity voter turnout across the country.
Great, thanks, Jalen. Mike?
Sure, Mike. My name is Mike Simpkins. I'm from Bemidji, Minnesota, the home of Paul Bunyan and Dave the Blue Ox. Also friends with their governor. I haven't seen him in a while. I don't know if you know him, Coach Tim Waltz. He's been gone for a while. But I worked in my first campaign in 1986. I've been working in politics ever since. Some of the most recent ones, I was a senior staffer with Al Franken when we clobbered his opponent by 312 votes. I also worked with Colin Peterson, Congressman, Rick Nolan, Congressman, Secretary of State Steve Simon. Anyway, I've been around the block as far as campaigns. Brett approached me a few years ago to get involved. And I honestly say is that it's the most rewarding job I've ever had.
Great, thank
And
you.
I get emotional about it. And I want to thank Brett for bringing me on board. And one last thing about Four Directions. In a technical sense, when Four Directions gets on the job, they get shit done.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you for that endorsement. And last but not least, Councilman Yellowboy.
Tyler Yellowboy, Tribal Council Representative for the Oglala Sioux Tribe. Don't have the extensive background as all of these people sitting on my right, but honored to give my opinion and I guess the history of how voter suppression happens in our state as well as our candidates. So pleasure to be here representing the Oglala Sioux Tribe on a Pioneer Indian Reservation.
Great, thank you, Councilman Yellowboy, and thank you, panelists. Appreciate you all being here. So let's get started. All of you have either worked with people who are running for office, you've ran for office yourselves, or you've been told by your community members that they've run into obstacles in just being able to vote or even register to vote. That being said, I'm going to throw this out to all of you, and however, if you all want to answer it, or just some of you, that's great. But let me ask you this. What are the barriers that each of you, your community, or the candidates you work for faced in order to participate in the electoral process? And two-part question, and how are they overcoming these barriers? And whoever wants to start.
What comes to mind me first is the legalities with voting. It is so complex to vote just on the basics, getting to the polls, access to the polls, knowing who to vote for. But the laws change every year, and this is intentional to try to keep it confusing, keep it complex, keep it scary, and make it so that people are afraid to vote. Or, they have impersonate an election officer, you could possibly get a felony. These are pretty intense penalties for people that really keeps people away from the polls and from voting is the first thing that comes to my mind.
Mike Simpkins again. I think especially on reservations, voter suppression is systemic, it's endemic, and it's planned. And not by the reservation, by those who have power over the reservation. I've seen it every cycle. Just one quick story, in 2020, Board Directions was on the Red Lake Indian Reservation, which is about 40 miles, and it could be 75 miles depending where you live on the reservation, to the county seat of Bemidji. And so to early vote, you had to get transportation to get to the Beltrami County Courthouse in Bemidji. We put it together a fleet of vans to provide free transportation for band members to get down to the courthouse to early vote. So I went with the first load of reservation folks. It's probably about 15, 20 of them. Got to the Beltrami County Courthouse in Bemidji, of where I've lived for over 50 years. And the voting apparatus is on the second floor. On the first floor is where you get your driver's license, marriage license, property taxes, that kind of thing. This native group walked in, and mostly women elders, by the way. They walked in, and the 20 or 30 people, white people, that were doing business at the courthouse looked at that group, and the look on their faces disgusted me. As a white person that lived in Bemidji, it was nothing but scorn and like, what the hell are you doing here? Well, we got our business done. We walk outside, and a registered nurse who I knew, native, was there, and I said, Ren, did you see that look? She goes, Mike, I've lived with that look for 50 years. And I thought, my God, we can be better than this. That's why on reservation is so important. You should be able to vote in your community and not have to worry about if you got gas in the car, or you have a babysitter, if your family's fed, and have to drive a round trip of 100 miles just to have a voting right that was given to you over 100 years ago.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Dylan, would you like to take a shot at this? Trying to get diverse opinions from various different communities and what everybody's kind of going through.
In 2013, as you mentioned before, the Supreme Court struck down Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act in the Supreme Court case Shelby versus Holder. Shelby County, Alabama versus then Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder. And since then, we've seen numerous voter ID laws pop up across the country, primarily in states where not only minority voters have a disproportionate impact on the outcome of the election, but native voters. We saw this pretty prominently in Georgia in 2021, I think, when they had the runoff where Warnock and Ossoff were running. It was difficult to, I shouldn't say difficult. Difficult might not be the right word. It was a challenge to get out many native voters, specifically in the Atlanta metro, because these repressive voter ID laws in Georgia had really taken so many of them off the ballot. Luckily, we had the manpower and the capacity, along with Brett, to get a lot of native voters re-registered, and not only that, engage low propensity native voters. It was a benefit for Four Directions because we were the only outfit in that runoff at the time that was targeting native voters exclusively. We were able to, I want to say we almost doubled turnout. We touched every registered native voter in Georgia during that runoff. But it would have been easier had these restrictive voter ID laws not been in place. And like Mike was saying, this is not by accident. This is a systemic issue. And we really have to work hard to overcome it.
Great, thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it.
One of the obstacles we faced in 2022 was on the Duck Valley Indian Reservation in northern Nevada. It borders the Idaho. It borders Idaho and Nevada. It's right on both. But for the people up there to be able to register or to vote earlier, even to register to vote, they had to drive 200 miles round trip. And it's a whole day activity, and they did not have satellite offices, but on the 100th day of our citizenship, or that we were allowed to vote, Four Directions made it so that they could vote on their own land 100 years after the fact. And we had to file a lawsuit. They fought us tooth and nail, but we won that lawsuit, and it was very historical.
Thanks, Don.
Now, I think these are like wonderful stories, but me, like giving a Latino perspective and how difficult it was, the same stories to, come through us, and a lot of folks, or young folks at particular times, weren't, they didn't believe that their votes mattered. And then as we had gotten more and more, Latinos elected in Congress, and things have changed, and I remember when Clinton was first elected, a woman named Gloria Molina, who was a county exec in LA, really came and blasted him because President Bush had more Latinos in, political appointments than he did. And so that really changed, because once we elect our folks, they come and they advocate for us. And all these impediments and all these challenges, they only make us stronger. Because when we have to go through these obstacles, now voting means more. But, in Washington, D.C., two things matter. You either have a constituency or you raise a lot of money. And you guys changed the election in Arizona 4 years ago. 200,000 votes through Ford Direction, through other people, and it makes a difference. So, and then I hear that you have these grants, you have folks from Interior talking to you. Well, we have to hold these people's feet to the fire, because our voices matter and we're just as important as everyone else. My grandmother always said, "You're better than no one, mijo, but you're as good as everyone." So get out there and fight.
Great, thanks, Steve. Appreciate that perspective. Tyler?
It's good to hear all the stories of voting moving forward in your areas. And I hate to be the stick in the mud when you come from South Dakota, because in South Dakota, when we had the turnout that put Tim Daschle back in the office, it was that native vote, or Tim Johnson, excuse me. And we haven't seen a movement like that in South Dakota. One, because they redistricted our areas. So they split us. Instead of having our state representatives being from our communities, our counties, they split the votes and put our boundary lines with the Republican districts, counties that neighbor us. So, we really have a hard time in our state legislature and with the state, with our deep red state and our governor, we really can't do much when it comes to Native issues, when it comes to state legislation. And I was telling this to Don the other day, was for our reservation, we have one satellite voting office for early voting. One for our reservation. When it becomes general election time, we get 2 polling sites. And the crazy part is our county commissioners are our own tribal members. And they would not give us a 3rd, a 4th, or a 5th polling site. So we face those challenges back on my reservation, back in my own district, back in my own state. So, instead of us being progressive and moving forward, like all of your guys' stories and hearing that you guys overcome, we fight the fight that we fight in our state. And it becomes voter suppression, because they're afraid of us making our voices heard again to say, this is who we want in our office. This is who we want as our state legislators. In the state of South Dakota, and OJ can correct me if I'm wrong, but right now they had their primaries, and a lot of the Republican allies that we as tribes utilize to help push things through in our state lost their seats because of radical issues being brought forward. The CO2 pipeline that was pushed through, and it's crazy because backstory to this, when DAPL was going on, the state legislators convened, the governor convened them, created all these new laws that says you can't protest, you can't voice your opinion, and oppressed the Native American people out there because we were making it known we didn't want this pipeline. Fast forward to today, and the CO2 pipeline, guess who's trying to protest? The non-members that was putting those laws on us Native Americans. Now they're facing that as, you can't protest on the grounds, you can't do this on the grounds. So with the primaries that happened with our state, we lost our Republican allies. And we lost a few Democratic seats. I believe we only have 3 in the Senate, I believe.
3.
Yep, 3 in our state Senate.
2 are Indian.
Yeah.
Yep.
2 are Indian and 1 from, I think, Sioux Falls, right?
Brett, where's he from? Our token white guy in the Senate.
Sioux Falls. So, you know, in our state, that's what we face. And, you know, hearing all of this stuff, and I made it known the other day or yesterday that, you know, we were one of the tribes that banned our governor because of her radical views on Native Americans. And I always echo that when I sit with our federal partners, our senators, and our congressmen, our one congressman, that, you know, we look to the federal government for help because we can't rely on our governor. We can't rely on our state senate or House of Representatives. So, you know, it's good to hear progressive, but on our side in South Dakota, we are nowhere near that.
Can I add to that a little bit?
Yeah.
So the one satellite office that is on Pine Ridge was actually won there by 4 directions. And I just want to give, my mother is the one who started all of this because she believed in her people and she wanted us to survive. And I'm so grateful to be her daughter. But the one satellite office that Ogallala got was because my mom and my dad fought for it. I was just their pusher. No. But thank you.
Great, thanks, Donna. Appreciate those comments. So guys, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's communities we didn't hear from here, but in past forums, we spoke with Janine Abrams McLean from Fair Count. She talked about what's happened in the Black community. We've had folks from various Chicano and Hispanic communities in the various venues that we've had these forums and talked about even more problems about their access and the inability to vote. Same thing with our allies in the Asian community and in the Sikh community. Every one of our communities are facing very, very similar issues and very, very tough obstacles to overcome so they can vote, so they can register to vote, and even run for candidates. I mean, some of the things that we mentioned here, access to voting places, because laws are a continual moving target. They're changing all the time. It's very intimidating for people of color, for Native people, maybe not for English first language speakers, to go to these places because they're not being greeted warmly, right? They're being met with hostility, if not outward, definitely from physical and facial expressions when they walk through the door. They're trying to keep people afraid and scared, and they're almost daring them to use their ability to vote and their right to vote. We've got systemic issues were created by people who don't want us to vote. They'll make stuff up to get these laws enacted, to put in more onerous and vague voter ID laws. We've got voters forced to re-register, especially on reservations when these laws come into place, causing tribes to scramble and spend exorbitant amounts of money to try to comply just so their people can vote. Limited polling sites, and I think to continue that conversation we had yesterday, Tyler, it's not just limited voting sites, but limited times they're open. So good luck even getting there to be able to vote, even if you have a ride. Those are just a handful, and believe me, there's a lot more obstacles out there. So in light of all that, in light of all those issues that are coming up and the barriers you guys have all mentioned, okay, having to deal with these tactics against all of our communities. And we tend to sometimes forget there's other communities going through the same thing. So that being known and that being said, how can organizations of color, how can communities of color work together to overcome these barriers and support each other as we look forward to the 2024 presidential election, the midterms 2 years after that, and other elections from there?
I'll address it real quick. I'll go back to Red Lake in 2020. Kids, teenage kids, college-age kids, white, black, Native, doesn't make any difference. They have more important things to do than think about politics. I totally get that. I used to be that age a long time ago. Well, we worked on, that year, we focused on 3 reservations in northern Minnesota, the White Earth, Red Lake, and Leech Lake tribes. And we hired a lot of folks, and a lot of them were young kids, 16 and over, to do canvassing, to get voter registration, and blah, blah, blah. Well, I remember it was a Friday night up at Red Lake, and all the kids get paid, all the people get paid at the end of the day, and they're usually out of there by, before dark. And in northern Minnesota, that's like, 5, 6 o'clock at night. And I heard this commotion outside. So I go outside of our office, and there's like 30 kids out there. And I said, well, you guys got paid, didn't you? And they said, yeah. I said, it's Friday night, why are you out in the parking lot? And they said, well, we heard that the Leech Lake band did pretty good today, and we want to wait until the final tallies come in because we want to kick their ass. And I thought, this is so cool, a bunch of 16-year-old, 17-year-old teenagers hanging around an election office on a Friday night because they wanted to know if they won the ballot war for that day. So I think exuberism and emotional and getting folks involved to realize that their vote is important and it does count. It's just like if you shoot one shot in a basketball game and get 2 points and it comes at the end of the game, you're the hero. You can be the hero too by your one vote.
I would like to say the way that we make sure that our communities are empowered and stay together and stay involved is that we need to, I know we all got auntie-jokes, but we all know where to go when we need things done. We go to the aunties or the grandmas but if they're not educated and also aware of what's going on, we have to keep it live in the community as one, not just as the youth or as an auntie or as an elder or as an uncle. We need to keep our communities together and make sure that everybody knows what's going on and that they get there and they make sure they teach their kids, the future generations, about voting and the importance of it and why their vote is so critical to any election in this country.
So the question was, how do we find, how do we work together?
How do we work together?
Latinos,
How do we
people of
overcome
color?
it?
I think as people of color, we have to find the commonalities and we have to collaborate. And, a simple way to do that is like what we did when we went, we were recently in the fair. Hire, people that do the work for us politically that look like us, that are us. Make a difference. Let's pump some opportunities in our community. Votes are great. Hey, here's my vote. But, if we can turn someone on to a new job, a new opportunity, a perspective. This reminds me in Kansas, I'd gone back there to work and we had this anti-immigration legislation. It was written by a gentleman from our state. And the African-American community wouldn't buy in. Oh, no, look, Trump, this is how, in my belief, they were bamboozled. Oh, you're taking our jobs. Taking our jobs? You kidding me, man? You can't even pass anything in our state legislature. You don't have enough votes. You need us. We got 3, you got 4 votes. And so what I did is I explained to them the commonality. It was 1.9 million blacks in America, Black Latinos. We're you. I mean, and, I may not be native, but I kind of look like you. You know what I mean?
He's got jokes like one.
Hey, but I think just finding the commonality, working with people, collaborating and knowing, it's, I always see this joke, like, a person of color voting, well, I'm not gonna say, but for the other side is like a cockroach voting for raid. You know what I mean? We have to look for opportunities to work together and that are gonna help all of our communities prosper. And I mean, that's basically it. Like, I'm here, we're all here working together to make things more positive and better.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just one last thing is that no step is too small. I mentioned I worked with Steve Simon, Minnesota's Secretary of State, and he's become a good friend of mine. I'm not name dropping, but that just is how it is. And I told him about the struggles that we've been having for years on the reservations. So he said, Mike, what can I do? And we had long conversations. Well, it's a baby step, but county board, this will surprise you. County boards say, well, we can't have early voting on the reservation because it costs too much money. And my God, where are we going to get the staff? Because for God's sakes, the reservation doesn't have any people qualified to do this. I mean, this is honest to God things they say. Anyway, Steve got put into state law that every county in Minnesota that has a reservation is required to have at least 1 day of early voting. Okay, that's a baby step. That's not enough. But he had to get it through a split legislature. But that's a start. Now these counties, they can't use that as an excuse. They have to provide at least one day of early voting on every reservation in Minnesota. So keep our ears to the ground and push the legislatures, push your leaders, and even if it's a small step, it's worth it.
Jen?
To piggyback on what Steve said, we do a lot of voter engagement through native-to-native contact. So in Nevada, 2 years ago, on the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, we had a number of elder women that did outreach via text, via phone call, and connected with people that they knew with the information that we had gathered in order to make those connections. And we found that to be very effective and something that we can replicate over and over again on different reservations in different states, especially in states like Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin. So I think that has been something that is very effective, especially with the indigenous population. I think it matters a lot more to hear from someone that you know.
Anybody else? So a lot of good things, guys. We're not siloed. This isn't unique just to Indian country. All of our communities are dealing with this. Four Directions did a really marvelous thing when they started to partner with Fair Count and Janine Abrams McLean. Our communities aren't all that different, right? We're facing the same issues, and sometimes there can be also crossover work. But I think what we all have to remember, regardless of the community, is they are trying to intimidate us. Fear is motivating the actions, that the fear they're creating is motivating the actions against our communities. And what I've heard from some of our panelists was, we've got to be strong together. We've got to work together. We've got to build allies, not just within our communities. We've got to build allies with other tribes. We have to build allies with other communities of color, and even white communities, because some white communities are feeling the same effects we are. And I tell you, I talked recently about what happened with the pipelines and KXL. Okay, all of a sudden they're the new Indians because now they're coming for their land. And I remember when we had the hearings in Rosebud, all of a sudden we've got all these white rancher allies that about 3 months before that weren't exactly knocking on our door to inviting us to dinner. But yet here they were because their lands were being taken. Don't submit to intimidation. Remember who we are as a people. Okay, stand firm. This is our right. They made the mistake of giving us citizenship. Okay, now let's use that mistake against them. Okay, we all know why they did it, but now they've also given us a tool to get our own representatives, whether from our communities or whether they're non-natives, but they're representing our district because they know that screw us and you're not getting back in the next time. And they can be our advocates and friends as well. Building that trust, right? What the one thing that's always really impressed me about Four Directions is they bring their community members to knock on the doors and to talk and discuss and advocate why people need to vote. Okay, it's not just go in there and knock on the door, hi, can you fill out this form and can I talk to you for 5 minutes and slam. But when you have somebody that looks like you, that talks like you, that live next to you is coming in, that's how we start to build consensus. That's how we start to educate without being intimidated or just getting a yes answer just to get you out the door. We all have something to offer, okay? Our communities, our knowledge, our language, who we are, our worldview, we can bring that to the political stage, change it from the inside, not the way they do it now. And hopefully through those kinds of observations, those politicians can learn from us because we have that to offer. And something else, I remember growing up, nobody ever voted. Okay, nobody wanted really you to vote. You always heard something like, well, don't worry about their elections. It's not going to matter anyway. You're a tribal member. You vote in your election. You vote in Oglala. You vote in Arapaho, whatever. But that attitude is really limiting our sovereignty. It means that we're only good enough to vote within the boundaries of our reservations. Don't let them limit that. Okay, our sovereignty, our survival is dependent on us working with and participating in these state and federal elections. We don't want them to make the decisions for us. If we're not at the table, we're going to be on the menu. And we have incredibly bright, talented, and savvy tribal people that should be sitting in those legislatures. And the difference there is going to be, they're just not going to advocate for their communities. They will be advocates for all the people they represent, because that's who we are. So just on a final note, kind of gleaning everything from what everybody here said, is when you go home to your communities, try to really get them to push the voter registration, mobilize to get people to the polls, get them to participate, simply because if we don't, every great thing we talked about, our food sovereignty, all the different programs, bringing back those buffalo herds and corridors, with one stroke of a pen, if we're not in that room, it may not happen. There may not be an Indian country to do all these wonderful things in if we don't participate and protect it ourselves. So I'd like to see if any of the rest of the panel have any closing remarks.
I always have something to say. I just want to again thank you, Barb Siemens and OJ Siemens, for fighting for me to be here, to be in such a great place in my life, to know that I can fight for people all over the country because of what you guys believed in, and it was just people. I also want to say you want to protect, thank you, Auntie, protect our sovereignty. If we don't protect our sovereignty, our ancestors didn't die for nothing. And if you don't get involved and stay involved, you were basically saying that. Let's protect what they gave us.
So I guess, to go back to what you were saying about having someone go to your home, the last 3 elections I ran, I've always picked somebody up and said, let's go vote. And then when they're done voting, they say, you want to know who I voted for? I said, that's between you and your paper and your pen and your little box you was in. You don't have to tell me. As long as you got there and you made your mark and you put your ballot in a box, that's all that matters. But whenever when Don talked about somebody going to your home, I'm gonna give you an example. With the census that just happened in 2020, Indian country in our area is severely undercounted. I represent a tribe of 52,787 members. I have on reservation 18,442 living on reservation, with 13,444 members that utilize our IHS facility. We got our numbers from the census, and because nobody wanted to open the doors because they might have looked like Mike, or they might have looked like that gentleman back there. They don't know those people, so they didn't open the doors. So our tribal enrollment, our tribal count for census was a little under 8,000 people on our reservation. So, it goes back to it's a grassroots thing. We have to knock on those doors. We make that contact, because I know my people aren't going to open doors for people like that. 1, because they think it's a social worker. 2, they think it's a housing employee that's coming to do a count, and you're overcrowding on your homes, so they don't want to be kicked out of their homes. We have all these barriers that we face on Indian country.
FBI or Mormon.
Right? Right? Nobody wants to open a door because I was thinking about that. The Jehovah's Witnesses, nothing against Jehovah's Witnesses, but people don't like opening doors because Jehovah's Witnesses will sit with them for hours and whatnot. So, and I know that because my mom would keep them for an hour. But, just those issues that go on. But when you were talking about all of these Indian programs that would go away with a stroke of a pen, that's what's happening today because our numbers aren't there. So we're getting cuts in housing. We're getting cuts in all of this stuff. And we're challenging them. We're challenging the federal government. And yesterday, I heard the gentleman speak about how do we get people out of these bureaucratic systems. We have to stay there and change the policy that will allow our people who are tribal people, I say tribal people because they're tribal people of different nations, but we have to change the policies to allow these people to make the changes we want to see. So, you know, that's the goal, and that's been my goal as a tribal legislator. Was I've been to Washington. I was telling Don and Madonna yesterday morning was I got criticized for my travel. But I travel because if I'm not sitting at this table, my tribe's not gonna get a part of the cut. If I'm sitting in the back and thinking, oh, they're gonna think about the Oglala Sioux tribe, and we get the short end of the stick is because we're not at that table. We're not there demanding, hey, we need services too. So, you know, all of this election stuff comes down to us being visible, being at the table, holding people accountable, and that starts with voting at the polls and making sure our voices are heard. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Tyler.
That's the end of my
Appreciate it.
campaign.
I think another add-on to that is that when the census people come and we get involved, that they come directly to the tribal facilities and arrange for that. I know when, like he was saying, when a guy was walking around, driving around in a Jeep looking for someone's residence, he happened to stop at my house. And I asked him who he was, and he said he was a census guy, and I'm like, the person he was looking for, I don't think he would have been able to go there if I said, I'll take you over there. Because I know that resident wouldn't have opened the door for him. But for me, it was disheartening to see that there's a non-native guy out here running around looking for my tribal people and didn't even come to us to say, hey, we need help with this count. Because I definitely would have made sure we had our tribal members in those positions to do those jobs and not a non-native guy. So he would have lost that head count if he would have just drove by and kept going, because I know they wouldn't have probably opened the door for him.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And OJ, maybe that's something as we approach this next census era that's coming up in about eight years or so, maybe that's something that actually needs to be addressed is before you guys go out on the census, have a little bit of courtesy. You wouldn't just go into anybody else's country and just start parading around and knocking on doors without knowing what the mores and customs of the country is. And maybe that's what needs to be learned, or at least say, okay, we've caught on, you know you know that we're not opening the doors, and so you can purposely lower our accounts. And maybe it's going to be one of those things where if you want to do that, then you make it mandatory. You've got to come to council first. You've got to go through some basic training, and then you can go knock on our doors. And then, even then, bring somebody from our tribe with you.
Or employ our tribal members to do that.
Yes.
You know, we've got a lot of young mothers out there and young grandmas that are watching kids that could literally been the ones driving around the reservation doing this for us.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Oh, sorry.
I just have a comment. I
Yeah.
think I'm loud enough. So I've worked for the census. I've worked as both a census taker and I've worked with tribal partnership. The census actually has a mechanism where they go out and all of us who are hired for tribal partnership are tribal people. And so there's a good number, but we have like the whole area to cover. We have between two of us, the whole state of Nevada. And that includes all 28 tribes, as well as all the agencies. I've worked as a native in the non-native community as a census taker. I was attacked by a non-native man. But census is something that's really, close to my heart. But when I went to, in this last census, 2020, I was working in partnership rather than, I can't remember the name of it, but, and I will go back hopefully in 2030. But I just wanted to let you guys know that census does come to tribal communities, and they want our own people to work for the census because we know that they're the folks that we will